Another video today to be made. Praise Yahuwah, the King of Kings and the Ruler of Rulers. I want to talk about an issue today called the Sabbath. This here is going to be about the seventh day. Which day is really the seventh day of the, and which day is the Sabbath? And we have 3 or 4 different angles to look at it. Some say the seventh day is, some say Sunday's the Sabbath. Some say Saturday. Some and go by the lunar Sabbath. I go by the lunar Sabbath, but I still go by every seventh day. And this is what I want to say. I believe a lot of the Seventh Day Adventists can't see the lunar Sabbath because of the way, for one reason, is the way the scriptures translate and the way that a lot of the lunar Sabbath put it out there, not showing that it's every seventh day. And this is what I want to put up here. I want to show these here verses, and I want y'all to see that lunar calendar there. When it's properly done, you'll see that it's every seventh day through the year after year after year. It never changes from creation. When it's properly done the right way. Maybe I should turn it around this way. There we go. See that new moon at the top? It goes all the way back down to the half moon, the full moon, then back to the half moon, then of course 7 days later back to the new moon. It just keeps going over and over and over. It never changes. That's why the Bible said from one new moon, not 2 new moons, but 1 new moon to the next 1 new moon, you shall enjoy your Sabbath hour in between. I'm going to start there. Of course, these are a lot of the verses you can go to check out too. Alright. We're going to go to, we're going to start our text off. I believe, let me see, got so many scriptures to go to. We're going to go to Exodus 12:16. Let's see where we at. 12:16. It says, in the first day there shall be a holy convocation, and in the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation. You should do no matter work done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. See, that right there says the first day is a Sabbath or a holy convocation, and he also says that the seventh day is a holy convocation. If you count 7 days from the first day, you'll have the 8th day, which would make it a Sabbath. In other words, to be on the 7th day. And that's talking about the Passover. And we know the Passover starts on a full moon, without a doubt. So if you go from the full moon, that would put because it goes in verse 17, you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread in the same self day. That would be, he's telling you that the feast of unleavened bread starts on the 8th day here, which really would be the 15th, but it would still be the 8th day from Sabbath to Sabbath. Then we're going to go to and verse 18 says, and in the first moon, on the 14th day of that moon, at evening shall be unleavened bread. See, the 14th day was a work day. That was preparation day, just like the Messiah when he was being crucified on the preparation day. That was not a Sabbath that he was being crucified on. It was a preparation day. But the evening that he was put into the tomb would be on a full moon, without a doubt. See, that's the reason why you can't make your count for the, like a lot of people try to put the Seventh Day Adventists, they want to take and make their prophecies on Wednesday But we know that the Passover was not done by a Gregorian weekly count. It was done by the moon. Now, all the Seventh Day Adventists agree, without a doubt, that the Passover starts on a full moon on the 15th. The 14th, was preparation day. See, that when he was being crucified, that Passover lamb was put on the torture stake. He was the Passover lamb on the 14th, but that was not the Sabbath day of rest, because he did not rest until he was put into the tomb. Therefore, he did not work on the Sabbath, because he was put in the tomb on a Sabbath. After the 14th, the work was done upon him during that whole day. Representing in the Old Testament, when they brought in the harvest on the 14th and on the 15th, they the same way they brought in the showbread and everything on the 15th. After they got through doing the ritual Passover, and they rested from bringing in the harvest on the 14th. That was it's just a type and shadow of the Messiah. Okay. Now we're gonna read Exodus 13:6. It says, 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the seventh day shall be a feast unto Yahweh. Now, you people say the Seventh Day Adventists that go by Gregorian calendar said that the seventh day is the Sabbath. Well, right here it says the seventh day. We know we eat unleavened bread for 7 days, but we also know that the first day was a holy convocation. Then 7 days you eat unleavened bread, and I would put it on the seventh day, which would be the 8th day from the time that they brought in the showbread at the evening of the 14th, on the first day when they brought the showbread. So then after that you count 7 days, and I would put it on the 8th day. Would be on the 7th day, making that a Sabbath. But if you go by, this is still talking about the Passover. 7 days you'll eat unleavened bread. So you know for a fact, if every 7th day is the Sabbath, according to a Saturday or whatever, or any of those days, it would not line up with the feast days or any of the feast days, because those days would fall in the middle of a Passover or middle of a Feast of Tabernacles or a Feast of Pentecost. Then you would have 9 days in your feast if you added, and you cannot have a weekly Sabbath in the middle of the Passover or the middle of any of his, because it would not line up with the word of Yahweh. It would be utterly impossible. With your common logic, that would not work, because it would throw everything out of order, and anything out of order is not from our Father. Okay. Now we're going to go to First Chronicles 23:31. See what I say? I wrote down First Chronicles 23:31. Second Chronicles, First Chronicles 23. It says, and to offer up the cooked offerings. It says burnt offerings here, but it really means cooked offerings. Anytime it says burnt offerings, it's really a cooked offering. They just translate it as a burnt offering. He says, it said, you offer the cooked offerings, the sacrifices unto Yahweh on the Sabbath in the new moons and on the set feasts by number according to their order, and unto them continue before Yahuwah. See, whenever it says on the new moon and on the Sabbath, it's not talking about two Sabbaths there, like some of the lunar Sabbaths try to teach. That's not so. See, what it is, the new moon was a weekly Sabbath. And if you don't count that, that's why you can't count the sliver moon as the new moon, because it won't line up. That's not a new moon. Like I've always said, if I got a car with 50,000 miles on it, it may look new to you, and may look new to me, but technically it's not brand spanking new because it has 50,000 miles on it. It's I would use the understanding of a 50,000 miles on a car as a crescent moon. It's still got age to it. It's got some time built onto that moon, not making it new no more. So the new moon, when it's no moon at all, it's total darkness. It's zero. Starts back. Just like you would, you reset your mileage on your car to zero. You know that it's going to start it back. If you took the old motor and put a new one, you would change your odometer to zero, starting it off as a new motor. But once it clicks over and goes to 5 miles, 10 miles, 100 miles, it technically it's not new because it's got mileage on it. It's almost new, but it's not new. It's when no one set in that car and put 1 foot or 1 mile up on it. That's why I want to explain that in childlike terminology, I guess. All right. Now we're going to go to Second Chronicles 2:4. Second Chronicles 2:4. Okay. Oh, Second Chronicles. How did I get 2:4? Oh, 2:4. It says, behold, I will build a house to the name of Yahuwah, dedicate it and burn before it with sweet incense, for continued showbread, and a cooked offering, morning and evening on the Sabbath, and on the new moon. See, when it said on the Sabbath, it's not talking about 2 double new moons here. Period. It's talking about the new moon being a Sabbath. And on the solemn feast of Yahuwah. And this order shall be forever. Now, when he's talking about new moons, he's talking about there's a new moon every month through 12 months in a year. That's what he's talking about, new moons. You shall offer up showbread on the Sabbath, on the new moon, and on your Sabbath. When it said on your Sabbath, that means there's 4 Sabbaths in between one new moon to the next new moon. And it will be every 7th day. If you make your count from the new moon to new moon and not from the sliver moon, you're going to get every 7th day all the way to the beginning of creation. And now I want to go to Leviticus 23:24. Here's what it says. This is going to prove right here, folks, that the new moon is a Sabbath, not a floating day, not a day that's not to be reckoned as a Sabbath. See, that's the reason why they have to make up leap year and all that on a Gregorian calendar, because they don't count the new moon as a day. That's Satan's confusion. But he said, 24 of Leviticus, speak to the children of Israel, say, in the 7th month or the 7th moon, in the first day of the moon shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial blowing the trumpet. So you always blow the trumpet. You always blow the trumpet up in the new moons. But he's telling you right here, you shall have a Sabbath. a memorial blow. See, he's telling you right here that the new moon is the Sabbath. And when you get that straightened out, then you can see and count every, like the Bible says, every seventh day is the Sabbath. And then you don't have these floating days. There's nowhere in the Bible where you have double new moons. I know they teach that, but there's no such thing as a double new moon. There's only one new moon each and every month. The Bible said, he says, and when the New Kingdom, he was the Sabbath, he said, from one new moon to the next one new moon, in between, you shall enjoy your Sabbath. See, you can't, it doesn't say from 2 new moons or 3 new moons every, you know, it just can't be. It's impossible. They don't line up. And the thing is, when you see that first sliver, most people think they seen a sliver of moon in there, but very seldom you actually going to see a sliver of moon because it's so small and moves out of the atmosphere so fast you barely have time to see it, because it only lasts like 30 seconds most of the time, because the reflection on the sun going down on the other side, or wherever on the other part of the earth going down, and so it's a reflection of that moon of it going down, and that's why that sliver goes down so fast. You would hardly ever see it. Most of the time when they think they see a sliver of moon, it's actually a moon that's probably 2 or 3 days old, and they're thinking it's a sliver. This sliver moon that he's talking about, it's a fingernail thin. It's barely, you can barely see it. If you got trees and mountains all around, you probably won't hardly ever see it. Now over there in deserts and places like that, you'll have more of a chance seeing it. But see, the thing about it is, folks, when they seen that sliver moon, that just told them that was the next day. It gave them an indication that it's time to go to work the next day, because that new moon that they kept the Sabbath on. And the thing about it is, when it's every 7th day anyway, and you ain't following no Gregorian calendar period, you're just going strictly by the moon, then it's going to be every 7th day anyway. Okay. Now, so we're going to read that. Since I read that, I want to go back up. I want to read this. And it says, and you shall count unto you tomorrow after the Sabbath, from the day you brought the sheave offering in. See, that was the Sabbath when they brought the sheave offering in. That was at the end of the Passover. Not at the beginning, but at the end of the Passover. That they brought the sheave offering on the 8th day. And they weighed the offering. Then he said you count 7 Sabbaths. Now, how are you going to keep, if you're going to count 7 Sabbaths every 7th day to be complete from Sabbath to Sabbath, you have to go. We know that the Passover was on the full moon. And we know it was on the 15th when they brought that sheave offering at the end of end of the 14th day on the 15th. So that would be a Sabbath. You count 7 Sabbaths from the full moon. See, they're not counting 7 Sabbaths every 7th day from a Gregorian calendar here. They're counting from the full moon, from the lunar calendar. And then it said after you count 7 Sabbaths, you ought to count 51 days. Count 50 days after that. See, that'd make it 99 days, and that would bring up your feast of weeks, feast of Pentecost, in 99 days, and that would put you over there where the law was given by Moses. But anyway, then we're going to go to verse. We're going to read Leviticus 21:6. On the 15th day of that same moon It's the feast of unleavened bread. Unto Yahuwah 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. So it started on the 15th, not on the 14th. And in the first day you shall have a holy convocation, a Sabbath. You know a holy convocation. Now if we back up and read in Exodus 23:3, 6 days shall your work be done, and the 7th day is the Sabbath of the rest, the holy convocation. You should do no work. It is a Sabbath. You see what he said? The 7th day. Well, on the 15th of that moon, I mean, what I'm saying is on that 15th day, prior to that was 6 days, but the 14th would be a work day, and you count 6 days, then it would be, 14, I'm sorry. I'm talking about on the 15th day would be the Feast of Unleavened Bread. On the same moon shall be the Feast of Unleavened Bread. To Yahuwah 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. And the first day shall be a holy convocation. Note, that first day, a Passover, was a Sabbath. Then it says you shall make an offering by fire unto Yahuwah 7 days. And on the 7th day it shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. See what that would do, 7 days from the first day of the 15th would put it on the 8th day, which would be, if it's a full moon, and you go count 7 days later, that's going to be a half moon, without any doubt. So you have to put the moon in here, and that's just like when the Messiah was being crucified. Like I said, they put him in the tomb on the 15th. And they rested on the Sabbath day according to the commandments. That's what they did. They rested. When Messiah rested, they rested. He was their example. He rested in the tomb. They rested on the Sabbath, making it the 15th. And 3 days later, 3 nights and 3 days later, he resurrected. Then Mary and the disciples came to the tomb at the end of the Passover, not at the beginning of it, like some try to teach. But anyway, that's not my topic right now. And then we're going to back up. We'll go to 23. We'll go to 23 and 37. These are the feasts of Yahuwah you proclaim to be holy convocations, Sabbaths, to offer an offering made by fire. And he said, beside your Sabbath, beside your free will gifts. And then on the 5th, and then it said, 39 said, also on the 15th day of the 7th moon, when you had gathered in the fruit of the land. Now the 15th day would be after you had gathered in the fruit of the land. In other words, the 14th was when they brought in the sheep offerings and everything. On the 14th, did all their work, brought it in. Then the priest, they would weigh the sheep offering after the 14th day was over with, which would be the same day the Messiah got crucified. On be the 14th, a preparation day. This was a preparation day till the 15th. And then what did it say? You shall keep the feast of Yahuwah 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. It's a weekly Sabbath. This can't be nothing else, because he never gave that commandment, work 6 days and rest on the 7th day. And call it a holy convocation. See, in between the first Sabbath, let's use this for an example. Let's say you was keeping Saturday as a Sabbath, or Sunday, either way. Let's say you was using Saturday, and your next Sabbath came next Saturday. That would be 8 days, right? If you count that first Sabbath to the next Sabbath, the 8 days. But in between that is 6 days when it says 6 days shall work be done. So what basically you're keeping the 8 day Sabbath, whether you realize it or not, from Saturday to Saturday. That's how y'all count. If you don't count that way, you're not going to understand a lot of things in the Bible. For example, we'll go to Joshua in a minute. And it says in verse 41, You shall keep the feast of Yahweh 7 days in the year. And there you go. I'm trying to explain it best I can. And I'm not going to make this video real long because I don't think it needs to be real long to get through. But I am going to go to we're going to go to Joshua, because this is where a lot of confusion comes in too, in Joshua. And we will be going to Exodus too. Deuteronomy here in a minute. We'll go to actually we'll just go to Deuteronomy first, I think. Let's see it. Deuteronomy 13, 14, 15, 16. Alright, no, that's good. We'll go to Deuteronomy first. Deuteronomy 16:1. Observe the month of Obib and keep the Passover to Yahweh. And in the month of Obib, Yahweh brought thee forth out of Egypt by night, not by day, but by night. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover to Yahweh, the flock, thy herd. Thou shalt eat no leavened bread for 7 days. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread within the. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread therewith, even bread of affliction. And then that's the part. I think I need to run back to Exodus. Yeah, I do need to go to Exodus. The reason I wanted to show you all that is because alright, we're going to go to Exodus now. You know, that was a month of Obib, right? Now we're going to go to Exodus 16:1. And they took their journey from Elim, and the congregation of the children of Israel that came out to the wilderness of Sin, and between Elim and Sinai, and on the 15th day of the second month. See what this was, folks. If you know about the second Passover, they were actually keeping the second Passover here in Exodus chapter 16, verse 1. And this is whenever he rained bread down out of heaven. It's on the second Passover. And that's why it says the second month after departing out of the land of Egypt. See, when the first Passover, when they left, the second Passover is whenever they departed out of Egypt. And why did it? And that's when the bread and the manna was. That's when the bread and the manna came down out of heaven and fed the children of Israel during this second Passover. On the 15th day, it started. So you know, the Messiah said he was the bread of life that came down out of heaven. This is a type and shadow that the Messiah was crucified on the second Passover. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that study. That's really real hard one for people to deal with right now. But what I want to read is it came, verse 13, it came to pass that even the quails came down and covered the camp, and the morning dew lay around about the host. We know they eat the quails every day, but and the manna. Then we get in verse 19, and Moses, you got to notice now, this is from the 15th of the full moon, because it was the second Passover. And it says, Moses said, let none leave until the morning, notwithstanding they hearkened not unto Moses, but they left it until the morning. In other words, they're supposed to get rid of it every day. and not eat anything after the sun went down. It was to throw it away. But some of them didn't listen. Then he said in verse 22, and it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread. And it was said unto them that which Yahweh had said, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. Bake that which you will today, see that which you see, and it remains late, be kept until the morning. See, you notice what he said, the 7th day. But if you know for a fact that they were keeping the second Passover here, and I can prove, you can go through the scripture and prove the second Passover was always after the first one. That was on the 15th. That would be in the middle. Just like the first Passover was on the 15th on the full moon, this here was on the 15th on the second Passover, proving that the 7th day from that full moon, when he was talking about not for them to not eat any, together twice as much on the 6th day, saying that the next day was a holy Sabbath, being that would be the 8th day. What that would prove is on that 7th day, counting from the first Sabbath. See, that's the way Israel counted from the first Sabbath to Sabbath. That's why he said from the first day is the Sabbath, the 8th day is the Sabbath. And then it goes on to say, see, that would make that from the full moon 7 days later. That would put it on a half moon on that next holy Sabbath. There's no way you can get a Saturday Sabbath in here, or Sunday, or any Gregorian calendar in here, when we know it started from the full moon. You can't put it in here. Apostle Paul said they'll twist the scriptures to their own instruction, but pay attention. And then, so we got that. We'll go to verse 16:29. See for that Yahweh has given you on the Sabbath day, therefore you has given you the 6th day, the bread of 2 days, about every man in his place, and let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. See, the 7th day there was actually the 7 days from, because there were 6 days of no servile work in between, from the 15th, or from the whenever he that full moon would be 7 days, because there were 6 days of work. There's the first Sabbath, which would be the 15th. Then you have the half moon to make it the 8th day, which still would be 7 days. So here we go. Now we're going to go to Joshua. This is really what everybody needs to really pay attention to in Joshua. All right. Here's the thing I want everybody to see. Also, you know, when Joshua was marching around Jericho, that was also on the Passover also. And I'll read that to you right here. Verse Joshua 5:11. He did eat of the old corn of the land of the Mar after the Passover, unleavened cakes, parched corn in the same self day. And he made sure they were circumcised. And you know they always circumcised on the 8th day. In other words, it'd be the 8th day. And then we're going to go ahead and read, just to let you know. Now, I'm going to read right here. It said in Joshua, he said in Joshua 6:3, you shall compass the city, all you men of war, and go around about the city once. Thus shalt thou do for 6 days. So they did that for 6 days, right? And they only marched 6 days. A lot of people think they marched 7 days. No, he said they marched 6 days only. But notice what he said in verse 15. And it came to pass on the seventh day, they rose up about the dawning of the day and passed the city 7 times. Only on that day they passed the city 7 times. See, when he said the seventh day here, it'd be just like it was over there in when they did the Passover, because they were keeping the Passover here. See what it was? It wasn't a work. It was a work day here on the seventh day, because they count their Sabbaths from the first Sabbath to the last Sabbath, just like it says over there in the scriptures, from one Sabbath to the next Sabbath, or one new moon to the next new moon, from Sabbath to Sabbath. So this seventh day here, they marched on the sixth. It was the sixth day that they marched, because they didn't march on the first day, because that was the holy Sabbath. They didn't march on the around Jericho on this seventh day either, because that was not a Sabbath day. It was the following day, the eighth day, that was a Sabbath. That seventh day there would be the 6 days they marched, counting from the time, counting the first day, the first Sabbath that they counted from, because you said the Sabbath and count 6 days. That would make it the seventh day. That's when they marched. Then the following day, they rested on the Sabbath. Did not have to march. And there's your formula right there. That's the mystery figured out, real plain and simple. But I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go in this thing big time right now. But I will go. We will go to the gospel of Matt and Luke. I'm going to read Luke right here. Well, we know when the Messiah was keeping the Passover, the first Passover in the beginning, under the Levitical law, that he ate with his disciples and kept the first Passover. He even told them to go get a lamb, and he ate and drank with them on that first Passover. Now, I want to ask you the $99 question. How could he die on the first Passover and he partake of it too, and fulfill everything that he said fulfilled when he died at 3 o'clock on Passover? See, what it was already pre-planned that he would die on the second Passover. That's the reason why those under the old covenant kept the second Passover, for those who were unclean. In other words, they didn't do, if they didn't partake of the first Passover and do the ritual lambs and slaughtering of the lambs and everything, it was out at war or whatever, they were deemed unclean, so they had to keep the second Passover. Well, see, our Messiah did away with the sacrifice and everything. He became our lamb, so therefore he had to die on the second Passover for all. Because you remember he said, "There's none righteous, not one. We're all unclean." He deemed us all unclean in the name of Yahuwah. But anyway, I'm gonna read Luke 23:54. And that day was the preparation day. That was the 14th. Same. This is Passover now. But the Sabbath drew on. The Sabbath drew on from where? The 14th. So what day would that be? That would be the Sabbath when he was put into the tomb, which would be on the 15th on a full moon. And it would line up with everything in the scriptures where the manna, they ate manna for 6 days, and then on the seventh day, being the half moon, would put Mary and them coming to the tomb at the end of the Passover. Then we're going to go, we'll read a couple other places. Now, we all know that Messiah was crucified on the full moon. We know it was the Passover. And we also know he was 3 nights and 3 days in that tomb from the full moon. That would have to be in the middle of the week, when Daniel said the day of the sacrifice would cease in the middle of the week. And when he resurrected, void, and the sacrifices for sins were done away with forever. The only thing that wasn't done away was the memorial, or the memorial of when he said, "Remember me, do this in remembrance of me," the Passover. But anyway, see, it says right here, the feast on unleavened bread drew near, and the Passover, and the chief priests, scribes thought that they might kill him, for they feared the people. And then when Judas betrayed him, then it says, then it came the day of unleavened bread when the Passover must be killed. So Peter and John said, go and prepare and make and kill and prepare us the Passover or the lamb that we may eat. So that was, and in verse 16 says, I said, y'all will no more eat of this Passover with you till it be fulfilled in the kingdom of heaven. Take this and divide it among yourselves. So he was keeping the Passover with his disciples. Him fixing to become the Passover on this. He was becoming our Passover lamb on the second Passover. Just that's why he gave 2 Passovers in the Old Testament. He didn't do that for no reason at all. So here's the $99 question. The Messiah could not be crucified in the middle of the week, like some of you Seventh-day Adventists try to put him in the middle of the week being crucified. He was not crucified in the middle of Passover. That's why y'all go from Wednesday to Saturday. Y'all try to put him crucified in the middle of the week. The daily sacrifice only ended because he resurrected in the middle of the week. But he was put in the tomb on the full moon, on the 15th, and 3 days later he resurrected in the middle of the week. And then 3 days later, the disciples and Mary came to the tomb, and he was already risen. He was already in Galilee. He done left. He said, you'll find him in Galilee. And guess where we found him? On the lake of Tiberias. Anyway, that's what I want to get to on that part of it. Everything that lines up with the lunar Sabbath lines up with his crucifixion, lines up with the word of the Most High in every phase you can think of. And I know a lot of you people have a hard time switching over to the lunar Sabbath because, but I think I give you enough evidence to get you started on your journey. And why would anybody trust a Gregorian calendar's been changed 3 or 4 times anyway through time and ages to different days and everything? You just can't be, folks. Just can't be. And you're going to have to swallow your pride, and you're going to have to prove to your own self, even in this King James Version, that there's a Saturday Sabbath. You say every 7th day. See, you got to remember before the light came, the light of the moon, or the sun, the moon reflecting the sun, there was darkness. So that represents the new moon, the dark moon, no moon at all. The moon was, see what you people don't understand, the moon was already created before Genesis 1:1. But the earth became dark. The earth became void. Our Father does not create anything void. His first creation in the first world was perfect. And then the second world, he turned off the lights, and that caused the dark ages. I mean, not dark ages, but that caused the ice age. So he had to turn the sun back on, turn the switch back on. He didn't create the sun and the moon. It was already created prior to Genesis 1:1. He just started all over again. He had to destroy that first world because of Lucifer and his rebellion. Now, I ain't going to get into all that. There's a whole lot to cover. But I just want to open up the eyes of the people on the lunar Sabbath. When you get it correctly right, it is every 7th day. There is no double new moons. That's just a figment of people's imagination. When they talk about over in the book of Acts, where he said Paul reasoned with them 3 Sabbaths, He wasn't talking about 3 days in a row. He was talking about 3 weekly Sabbaths in a row, because it tells you a little further along. He said the whole city came on every Sabbath day to hear the word. Apostle Paul was there preaching, or Peter and different ones. They didn't preach 3 days in a row. There's no such thing as a double new moon, triple. It's one new moon to the next one new moon. That's it. See, that silver moon, like my brother told me, brother Nathan, that silver moon sometimes can come up in the middle of the day, depending on how the moon phases come up. But the full moon is always, you'll always see it at night. At night. The half moons, you'll always see them at night. And the new moon, you ain't going to see, because it's the dark moon. So anyway, I'm done with this message for now. I will make another one. I would love to have some requests to encourage me to make more and get more deeper into it. I can and I will. But right now, I'm just a little bit tired today. Today is a Sabbath. Today is actually a new moon Sabbath today. I'm making this video. I don't even keep up with the day of the week Gregorian calendar, because it don't mean nothing to me. I don't go by a Gregorian calendar. I count my days by Yah's calendar, the moon and the sun. That's how we keep. That's how you are to keep the Passover. The spring equinox. He said the first new moon from the spring equinox shall be your Passover. You go from when that new moon comes in, and that spring equinox comes in, that next new moon, you count from that new moon. From that new moon, the first new moon that comes in after the equinox. Then you count 15 days. That'll be the full moon. That'll be your Passover. That's real simple, ain't it? But men want to make it complicated. They want to follow the Jewish and the Jews and stuff over there in Palestine and go by the barley and wheat and all that kind of stuff. That's not true, because that could throw you off the full moon all the time. It could be off 2 or 3 days, but it can't be off when you go by the sun and the moon. It can never be off, ever be perfect every time. It has to be perfect. Anyway, I praise the mighty name of Yahweh today, and may Yahweh bless everyone who hears this message. Hallelujah. Later.